This is AM Agenda. Thank you for your company this morning. With me on the program now, Liberal MP Steve Chobo and Labor MP Kelvin Thomson. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Steve, we've seen this poll today on economic management. It shows just how much the coalition needs to get its act together in message straight on surpluses and so on, doesn't it?
Well, what today's poll shows, and I mean, we're always, as all politicians are, loath to take any stock of polls, but what it clearly shows is that this is a government with a serious credibility problem. I mean, people know that this is a Prime Minister who can't control her office, who can't control her cabinet, and obviously can't control Australia's borders or Australia's economy.
But you've got this lead and credibility, the coalition, on economic management.
Sure. Well, it's based on past performance.
You don't want to lose that, do you?
Yeah, and we won't, because it's based on past performance. And instinctively, Australians know that under a coalition government, the economy was stronger. We had unemployment down to a record 33-year low. We'd paid off all the debt. We'd got our budgets under control, and we're running strong services.
It's got to be a real worry, Kelvin, to see the news poll today on economic management. You did have the lead. The credit ratings agencies give the economy a rap, and yet the government's just absolutely on the nose, big time.
Kieran, in relation to economic management, with apologies to Clint Eastwood, make my day. The fact is that inflation is lower under Labor than it was under the Howard government. Unemployment is lower. It is around 5%. It was an average of 6.4% under the Howard government. The Liberal opposition opposed our stimulus measures. Had they been successful, if they'd been in government now, we would have 200,000 Australians who are presently out of in work. They would be out of work. And as for interest rates, they have come down. The average mortgage of $300,000, a typical Australian family is now paying $3,000 a year less. So on all of those issues, we have the better record.
We're going to see a delegation of workers from Alcoa here today. That's the aluminium company reviewing its smelter in Geelong. The economy isn't great across the board. Obviously, major pressures in pockets of the economy, like at Alcoa. We've got jobs being lost across manufacturing more generally. That is a fair bit for the coalition to work with here, isn't it? It's not rosy across the board.
Well, they're not working with it very well, Kieran. The point is that the mining boom and the success of the mining boom has pushed up the Australian dollar. That has had adverse consequences for manufacturing, tourism, retail. Those things are well known. The government is endeavouring...
They'll continue to blame the carbon tax every time.
Well, the carbon price isn't even in. It's got nothing to do with the high Australian dollar.
Companies plan for the future.
They do indeed, and we are planning for the future. We are supporting manufacturing, and we are saying we want a diverse Australian economy. That's one of the reasons we brought in the mining resources profits.
Taxes, is what you're trying to say.
What we're doing is making sure that the benefits of the mining boom are spread out to manufacturing, to retail, to tourism, where they need to be. We can't afford to be a one-trick economy.
On the carbon tax, though, wouldn't it be better to delay it and take that off the books for the time being?
People have been delaying the carbon price for years and years and years. It is absolutely essential for Australia's economic circumstances that we take action to price carbon properly. The issue here is that the Labor government is supportive of manufacturing. The Liberal opposition, on the other hand, is seeking to walk both sides of the street. It's entirely unclear as to whether the opposition is willing to support the car industry, the automotive industry. They've opposed our endeavour to spread the benefits of the mining boom by reducing taxes on small business and company tax and spreading those benefits around to the economy more broadly.
Okay, Steve?
Well, look, I mean, it's ridiculous, Kieran. We're hearing from the Labor Party this notion, and Calvin's here this morning saying, look, if there's good news, it's because of great Labor policy, but if it's bad news, it's got nothing to do with us. I mean, there are a couple of inescapable facts. Under the Coalition, we paid off all of your debt. Under the Coalition, we got a record 33-year low in unemployment. Under the Coalition, we ran massive budget surpluses, and we put money away for the future. Your government, to the extent that there is any good news, is simply coasting on the coattails of the hard work that was done by John Howard and Peter Costello. And everything that this government has touched, they've had the 4 biggest budget deficits in Australia's history. Unemployment is increasing, and they're making Australia less competitive. Take, for example, the car industry, to which Kelvin refers. Under the carbon tax, on the 1st of July, straight to the bottom line, an extra $400 per vehicle extra tax. They're putting new taxes on the mining industry. They're introducing a raft of new taxes across the board. The single biggest, which will impact on Australian families, is of course the carbon
on the
tax.
banks. I want to ask you about the prospect of more rate rises.
Sure.
CBA and NAB look like they're going to follow suit, with ANZ and Westpac having acted outside of the official movements. Do you agree with Anthony Albanese that the banks need to show more of a social conscience?
Well, I don't agree with Anthony Albanese. I certainly think the banks need to do more. But look, banks are essentially in Australia today in a profound position of market power, and that's been delivered up to them by Wayne Swan. We have now seen the single biggest concentration, so that about 90% of new lending comes from the four major banks. That's happened under Wayne Swan's watch. Under the coalition, it was a much more competitive,
Largely due to
much
the
more
GFC,
vibrant
wasn't
field.
it, when foreign lenders...
This
didn't
Labor's
happen.
line. No, of course it happened. But this is Labor's line, is that everything that's bad is because of external factors and everything that's good is because of their good policy. That's not the case. Labor took direct policy decisions which have concentrated power into the hands of the four majors, and that is now rippling across the Australian economy. That's the problem. It's the policy decisions that the Labor Party's taken which have been bad policy decisions.
Well,
Kieran,
let's look at the record here. The banks are acting outside of the RBA's official movements. They're not listening to the government. The Treasurer's talking and jawboning the banks, but they're thumbing their nose at him.
Under John Howard,
There's no respect there, is there?
In the Howard government, we had 10 consecutive interest rate rises. The average mortgage for an Australian family is $3,000 a year, less than it was under the
Surely the
Liberals.
Treasurer should be able to pressure the banks to say, come on, fellas, you're announcing billions of dollars in profits here. Pull your heads in.
Well, we've done more than that, Kieran. We've banned exit fees, which makes it possible for people to switch their banks. I've got my home loan with members' equity. It is a full half a percentage point below the four major banks, so people do have other options. I believe people should look at those options of having their home loans with banks other than the major banks. We banned exit fees to make that easier to do. The Liberal opposition opposed it. They sided with the banks.
Under your government, your policies have resulted in a massive concentration of new lending to the four majors.
You think the global financial crisis never happened? Is that right?
I'm saying don't try to verbalise what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, under the policy decisions of your government, we've seen a massive concentration to the four majors. So you can sit there and talk about members' equity and how people have choices, but what matters is the results. And your policy changes mean that now 90% of new lending comes from the four majors, and that is a reduction in competition.
The global financial crisis worked to the benefit of the four major banks. That's simple, simple fact. And the fact is that the policy decisions that we took during the global financial crisis were very much in Australia's best economic interests. Australia fared during the global financial crisis much better than other countries.
We've given the economy a fair run this morning. Let's look at the issue of gay marriage. It looks like the Liberal leader might allow backbenchers to have a conscience vote. If you're given a conscience vote, which way would you go?
Media speculation. I mean, well, I've already indicated on the record that I'm opposed to gay marriage. Civil unions is a separate issue, and I'm supportive of that, but I certainly don't support gay marriage. But look, the issue is this, Kelvin. We took a policy... sorry, Kieran. The issue is this. We took a policy to the last election, and unlike the Labor Party, what we say we're going to do before the election is what we do after the election. Our policy on this has been clear. It's been consistent for a long time now, so I don't see that changing.
Okay, is it inconsistent for Tony Abbott to say conscience vote for backbenchers but not for frontbenchers? Surely that diminishes the notion of a conscience vote if it's limited to only half the party.
Kieran, we're getting into speculation. I mean, what I know is what Tony has already said, and he said that the Coalition has a clear policy in this area, and he intends to enforce that policy going forward. So, we can sort of speculate about what if this, what if that. We have a policy, which is that we took to the last election, marriages between a man and a woman, and that remains our policy.
It seems quite bizarre, Kelvin, that this morning we're going to see two private members' bills introduced. I would have thought that if these MPs want to be successful in this bill, or in these bills, that they would co-sponsor one bill and try and persuade some members of the coalition to vote with it.
I think that's fair comment, Kieran. Clearly this thing has a fair way to go, and I dare say there'll be discussion and negotiation between supporters of various propositions. I think it would be a good thing if the Liberal opposition did have a conscience vote in relation to it. Labor has said it will give its members a conscience vote, and the Liberal Party always says, you know, we are the party of conscience, you are the people of the ruthless party machine. Well, the fact here is we will have a conscience vote on this issue, and it would be a good thing if the Liberal Party members had likewise. One of the great things about the issues over the years where we've had a conscience vote is that we've had really good quality parliamentary debates, and in each case I have not made up my mind until I've heard the parliamentary debates and seen the detail of the legislation. I am leaning towards the change, Kieran. I think if you go back years, the Australian public wasn't ready for this, simply didn't see marriage in the way being proposed now by the advocates of same-sex marriage, but I think that the views of Australians are shifting in relation to these things. But look, I'll be listening to the debate, I'll be listening to my electorate and having a think about these bills before they actually come to vote. I suspect that'll be some time away.
We've just got 2 minutes left on the program. One other issue I want to ask you about asylum seekers. Jason Clare, the Minister for Home Affairs, says that people smugglers are now promoting their product to asylum seekers, saying that essentially it's a closing down sale, that the coalition and the government will eventually get its act together and will get their act together and have this offshore processing legislated. That's quite optimistic, though, isn't it? There's no sign of a compromise anywhere near the near term.
And I think that's a shame. Tony Abbott is so negative that even though he says that there ought to be offshore processing, he won't support legislative measures designed to achieve that outcome.
The government's going to continue to use that strategy against the opposition. More boats arrive. They'll be pointing the finger, trying to share a bit of the blame here.
You know, look, as a coalition, Kieran, we welcome the Labor Party trying to make out that it's all the coalition's fault, you know, from morning until dusk and 7 days a week. I mean, it's farcical. What we know is under the coalition, 4 people in mandatory detention. Under Labor, since Labor changed the laws, you made the changes, 15,000 people have come. You know, the notion that the Australian public, and this is why Labor has no credibility, the Australian public are smart enough to know that when people like Kelvin sit here and go, it's all Tony Abbott's fault, they just go, ridiculous. We know who changed the laws. It was your party. That's why we went from 4 to 15,000. Get serious, change the laws, put decent policy on the table, and the problem will be solved.
We want to change the laws and you block it. You won't support it. So you can either engage in the blame game or you can seek to help solve the problem.
Has ridiculous. I mean, they were running around saying to reopen Nauru was going to cost $4 billion or some completely absurd figure. I mean, as a coalition, we will always stand in the way of a government that peddles this kind of mistruth.
Stand in the way of a solution.
Kelvin Thomson, Steve Chabot, gentlemen, good to see you both. That's all for AIM Agenda. Ashley Gillen will be along lunchtime, 1:30 p.m. Eastern for Lunchtime Agenda. I'm Kieran Gilbert. Thanks for your company.